After being surveyed to measure variability in culture changes, it was determined that 84% of the refugees in the Treasure Valley area have changed culturally and adopted the American lifestyle. 40% of the people said it was a positive change, 11% said it was negative, and 33% claimed it was both positive and negative. Many refugees are unaware of the challenges that they will face in America. That is why, as a community, Boise needs to better the assimilation process for these refugees.
Things you have to understand about when people resettle from wherever they're coming from. One is that they're leaving a very traumatic environment for the most part. They're refugees for a reason. So not only do they have an education sort of, not only do they have culture shock and maybe language difficulties, but there's also issues of trauma, and not just trauma with regards to, say, war and armed conflict or human rights violations, but also, too, the fact that they've left their family, their homeland, and these other things. And then they come to the United States, and depending on where they resettle, they're oftentimes sometimes they're welcome, sometimes they're not very welcome at all.
Specifically with refugees, when somebody comes into the country, they have to go through a process where they get settled by a resettlement agency, and then from there they have to go through and basically build a life. And so what we're trying to do is identify those people that need assistance and help them navigate that process. That includes education, making sure that they're stable in their housing. Sometimes it's even as much as like teaching them how to use their appliances and things like that.
Some of the major refugee agencies in the Boise area include Agency for New Americans, International Rescue Committee, and World Relief.
So all of these agencies receive fund from the federal government through the Idaho Office for Refugees, and then disseminate them through these agencies to help these refugees go, adjust within their 8 months of living in the U.S. So in these 8 months, they have housing assistance, they have transportation, they have interpretation services provided to them.
Most refugees think that they will easily be able to find a job in Boise fairly soon. However, this is quickly negated due to many reasons.
Getting jobs are just really hard. You just think about, a U.S. citizen who is here and trying to find a job, which is really hard. And then you can imagine these new refugees who's coming here. I have no idea about the culture. I have no idea about how things are here, and then trying to compete with this the job market. I mean, it's really hard.
You can imagine if you had went to, say, Seoul, South Korea, and didn't speak Korean, and just said, okay, you got 8 months to learn Korean, and here's a bus ticket and some money, and go find a job.
A lot of people, when they get in, they take the first job available, and a lot of the times it's a job like working as a house cleaner or a maid service at a hotel, and that's something that doesn't require the use of your English skills, and so anything that they've been taught is quickly lost, and then they kind of get put back in square one, and they're stuck in a position where they're not going to be able to make more money to support their family, and they're going to be stuck in a poverty situation. So it's identifying those kind of issues and figuring out ways to work around those and give people the knowledge and the skills to be able to find a job, keep it, and be able to find growth rather than be stagnant in where they're at. The next thing would be finding out what their job skills are, if they have job skills, if they're going to be able to acclimate to a work environment, and then finding whether or not there's deficiencies within those skill sets, or if they don't even have the skill sets, how to get them into a situation where they can find happiness in what they're doing.
From the point of view of the host society, it requires a willingness for communities to be welcoming and responsive to refugees, and for public institutions to meet the needs of a diverse population.
the majority culture should be really engaging the refugees and really sort of not hugging them, but really putting their arms around them and and trying to engage the various communities.
I think that that's kind of something that the community itself needs to do a better job of, is being able to provide a blanket network of resources rather than these hidden pockets of information that's out there but nobody really knows about. But as far as mixing the communities, I think that there are some benefits to it, because if you can get people that have seen success, then that's somebody that other people can look up to as a way of finding their own success. It's kind of a benchmark for them. I think that as a culture, we need to become more accepting of all the great things that come in from other countries. I mean, our nation was built on a melting pot of civilization, and we wouldn't even be here if that wasn't the case. We also have a lot to work up to kind of create a culture of understanding. The people that generalize a person based upon their ethnicity or where they think that they've come from, which isn't even always the case. I mean, there's people that can look like they might have come from Iraq, but they've come from Egypt. And there's also impatience with people. One thing that I've learned from some of the people that I've dealt with is that they're scared to speak English because people get so impatient with them when they're talking, and you get those rude comments like, "Well, why don't you try and learn English better," or something like that, or "Why don't you just go back to your homeland," or something like that. And it creates a culture of fear for some of the refugees, and it makes them to where they don't feel comfortable trying to learn more because they don't feel like they're ever going to fit in.
I mean, I think you really have to think about where these folks came from and why they're here. They're not here because they want to be here.
And if you think about it, you're getting into you're starting a new life into this new country. You don't know the language. You don't know what. You have no idea about the culture, and it's just hard. It's really hard to get adjusted really easy.
There are many educational assistance programs provided for refugees, some of which include Head Start, the Boise School District, Joint School District Number 2, ESL, ABE, and GED.
I mean, the agencies make sure that they place the children into schools. It's one of the priorities, actually, for children, for youth.
It's really incredible to see somebody that may have come from their home country no more than a year ago, that's completely acclimated within a couple months, can already start to speak the language, and just to see those children grow and actually thrive and become model students has been really cool to see that as well. So I think any impact that I see is always encouraging. Seeing a refugee family, for example, move out of our apartment complexes because they're buying a house, or finding a job that they love, and being able to see somebody that seems like they might have felt like they've been defeated, like thriving and actually finding happiness and seeing their family happy.
And then they're pretty determined people. I mean, who try to support their families. They have to go provide work the whole day, and then in the evening they have an ESL class they have to attend. Trying all of this is part of adjusting in the community, which is not easy. And then after that, they have to take care of their families at home and have children.
Idaho is currently conducting surveys to figure out what it is that refugees exactly want and need.
So we're focusing a lot on aspirations and goals of refugee families, because if we know what they want in life, hopefully we can facilitate that goal, those aspirations, and start to focus on the positives and the strengths that refugees bring to the communities that they resettle in. Boise as a city, I think, municipality has, I think, been very proactive, so that's good. So that's the macro level of things. As a community, I think, I'll speak for what I think I could do, or the Boise State or professionals can do better. More on coordinating services that we do have. I think there's some redundancy in services. I think there's probably some way the services could be more efficient what we're doing. I think we could probably listen to what refugees' issues are more, which we're currently in the process of doing through a series of focus groups and surveys we're conducting to better understand what they need most and to prioritize. Macro, working on the environmental stuff would go a long way, I think, into helping folks adjust instead of maladjust to their new reality. And if we could just, get them the proper resources and get them stuff, and so then we can actually focus on some of that background stuff that's very, very severe. Some of those stories are brutal. I would suggest to policymakers, both here and in DC, that if we're doing large-scale resettlement, we may want to, look at other immigrant groups and the problems of geographic and economic and social isolation, say with Latin American, broadly defined, like Mexican Americans and Central Americans in particular, and what barrios mean and what that, that's the logical sort of end game for ethnic groups that are socially isolated and economically marginalized.
I think help, just help them whenever you can. Most of them just have no idea how this society works, which agencies are trying to work hard on, to get them adjusted pretty well, but it's just the help. And then
We'll have to see what the refugees are telling us in terms of what they think would be best helpful for them.
that refugee agencies do make sure to train them on how to ride the bus, where to take the bus, which bus to take, which number of the bus to take, and where to go, which they stop, where do they supposed to stop. They usually go through this, but usually when it's winter time, it becomes a really big challenge, whereby they have to walk in the cold, in the snow, and try to get the bus there. But the other thing would be the awareness of refugees. The communities, most people don't know who refugees are. They pretty much know, okay, who are those guys coming from where? But just the awareness of refugees, and that there are also people who, like a new immigrant, to contribute to our society. They work hard, and especially if you can help them, especially in getting jobs too, that would be nice. That's very